Hey guys, Lauren Losing here, and I'm going to be doing a mini makeup tutorial. I filmed one yesterday, literally doing my face beginning, like moisturizing, to the very end, and it took 47 minutes because I was stopping to explain everything as I was going. I attempted to try to edit it and I couldn't figure it out. So I decided to scrap that idea, and until I can figure out how to edit, I'm going to do one thing at a time. So today it is going to be contouring and highlighting. So right now I have on my foundation and I did my eyebrows. Clearly they look very bold on camera right now. I promise they look much better once my whole face is on. And so I'm gonna go over with you basically my contouring and highlighting routine, and so we'll just get right into it. So I will tell you the products that you need. You obviously need a contouring and highlighting powder. So I have the Marc Jacobs Mirage filter right here. That's what I'm going to be using. You could also use the Lorac Pro Contour Kit. You could use the Anastasia one. You can use the Sephora one. You could use a drugstore one. I know Ulta, the Ulta brand makes one. NYX makes one. Use whatever you like. You could use just a plain bronzer if you want. I used to use Hoola bronzer all the time by Benefit. I will say that, so some people will contour with a warmer shade. I prefer to contour with a neutral to cool shade. What can I show you? So this is a pretty warm bronzer. You can see a little bit of the orange undertone in it, and then you can look at my contour powder and see that it is much more cool toned. I mean, you can see it's more of a gray undertone. And then you also don't really want shimmer in your contour product because this is supposed to be mimicking a shadow. So shimmer obviously attracts light. So anyhow, I have my contour and highlight powder. I have, where did I just put it? I have my concealer. So you want the concealer for the highlighting. Honestly, if I'm just trying to run out the door, I just do the contour, but this is contour and highlighting. So you want your concealer. I use the Urban Decay Naked Skin 99.9% of the time. If you want a good drugstore one, you can use the Maybelline Fit Me or the Maybelline Age Rewind. Or NYX makes a pretty good one also. Then I also use a blotting powder in between. If you have dry skin, you might not need to do this, or some people don't even do this step at all, but in between my foundation and my contour powder, just to make sure that there isn't, I mean, I try to let it dry in between, but just to make sure there aren't some wetter patches than others. I have concealer on my forehead right now because I have a big zit. So, and it's this thicker creamy concealer. So if I just leave that plain and I go over with the darker powder, it's gonna stick to that. So I want something to mattify it before. So I have my NYX medium dark contour powder, although it looks super light. I mean, not contour powder, blotting powder. Then my bronzer. So I like something as a gradient in between my contour and my highlight. I like just pretty much on my cheeks. Obviously you'll see it. So this is just a warmer, little bit of a shimmer bronzer. This is J-Cat Golden Soleil bronzer in the color Cypress Clay. This is a $5 drugstore bronzer that you can get at Ulta. Just started carrying J-Cat, but I also like to use something like the Tarte Parka Princess shimmery version. They also have a matte version. That's a little sample. And then what else? So the tools that we're going to use, I'm going to be using the NARS Ita brush for the contour. You could also, you don't have to use like a flat brush like this. I just find it to be somewhat foolproof. You could use something like this, which is actually the Real Techniques contour brush. You could use like a smaller brush like this just to go like that. But this is actually what I use for my under eye setting. You could use something like this, which is the Real Techniques sculpting brush. So it's a little bit fatter, but also oblong. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to, they also have a duo fiber contour brush, which actually makes a duo fiber brush gives you a much lighter application. So if you don't like to go quite as hard as I do, but you still tend to have a heavy hand, this is a great option. Okay, but like I said, I'm using the NARS Ita brush. I'm using the Real Techniques contour brush to set my powder under my eye. I am using a powder brush to use my blotting powder and also for my bronzer. And I'm using a damp beauty blender. If you use a sponge, whether it be a beauty blender like this or one of the other, dupes, you always want to wet it first, like completely wet it. I hold it under the faucet for like 30 seconds and I'm constantly squeezing it to make sure it's filling up with the water. And then at the end you completely squeeze it out so it's just barely damp. You don't want to use these dry. Alright, so I will just get into it. First step is highlighting. So this is going to look extremely stark on me, but then you'll see once I blend it out. This is the shade Light Warm. I'm super pale right now. I haven't literally laid out in the sun since April because I decided that this was going to be the year that I took care of my skin. So instead of, putting sunscreen on like a normal person, I've just completely stayed out of the sun. So you're going to put this under your eye in a triangle shape. So you're basically highlighting everything that you want to come forward. So then I'm going to use a little bit down the center of my nose. I do it on my upper lip and around my mouth. On my chin a little bit. And a little on my forehead. So that looks great, doesn't it? So now we're going to take our beauty blender and just buff it out. So you're just dabbing it into your skin. You don't want to wipe it. You don't have to use a beauty blender for this step. You could use something like this. It's falling off, it's broken. This pointed kabuki brush, and you could use a brush like that to dab it out. You could also use a contour brush. You just don't want to, I don't like to use the same products for my powders and my wet stuff. So you also don't want to put any powders down before your creams. You'll start to look cakey. So you always want to use wet products first and then dry. So I haven't powdered anything on my face yet. That's going to come directly after this. And like I said, you might not want to go as hard as I do, as big of a contrast. You don't have to. But the whole point of this highlighting part that we're doing is for it to be lighter than your skin tone. So you want to go at least one shade lighter. And if you don't want to, then just completely skip the whole highlighting part. Alright. So now that we're blended out, now we want to set that. I use this setting powder in here. It's a yellow shade. Yellow brightens. You don't have to use yellow. You could use a translucent powder. or you could use something a little more beige. So I do my under eyes first just because that's where you crease, or where people tend to crease. Some people crease around their mouth also. I don't really, but I'm just setting everywhere that I put the highlight. I always crease under my eyes even when I set it immediately, so I usually at the end have to go over it just with my fingers and dab it out. Alright, so this is the part where I'm going to be putting on my blotting powder, mainly because of that zit that I have on my forehead and that I don't want the bronzer to stick to. Okay. Now we are getting into the contour. So I am taking my NARS Eda brush. I am patting it into the contour powder. It's a good amount on there. You want to start lighter. So since I've been doing this for such a long time, I know pretty much how much I want. You always want to start lighter than you think, because you know, you can always add more. It's really hard to take away. I mean, you can. If you go too hard, you can buff it out. There is a way, but all right. So you're going to be starting like at the top of your ear here, like pretty much where your sideburns are, and bringing it down to the corner of your mouth. You don't want to, so this is basically creating cheekbones. So you don't want to go too high, but then you also don't want to go too low because then it's going to look like jowls. And then I bring it pretty far just because I do have such a round face. So I bring it like 3/4 of the way in. If you want something a little more delicate, you can just bring it to like the outer corner of your eye. But I do bring it pretty far in. And then I buff it up this way. It looks a lot like more stark on screen than it does in person right now, which is actually good because then you guys can see it. But I'm going to be doing it to how I like it in person, obviously. So I'm just going to do the other side. The lighting in my bathroom isn't great either, so. Alright, so that's good enough for the cheekbones for now. Now I'm also going to take it onto my forehead. And we just start on the side. So just like you don't highlight one part of your face, you don't just contour one part of your face. It's just, well, first of all, that wouldn't be naturally where, you know, the light and shadow hits, wouldn't just be one part of your face, but then it's also going to make it a lot more obvious that it's makeup and not natural. Not that natural is a look that I necessarily go for all the time, but so I am going on the sides of my forehead and then up along the hairline. Sometimes I would bring it a little farther down, but I'm really worried about that zit, like being more pronounced. I leave this like whole section right here open. I don't like connect it down here just because it makes you look like you have those more pronounced cheekbones. So the way I'm going to be showing you is basically for a rounder face. I will tell you what steps you can skip for if you already have like a pretty structured face, or if you already have a very pronounced jawline, there are some steps that you can skip. But these steps that I'm doing right now are ones that you always want to do. Okay, so this one can be a little different. This I'm going to go straight on my jawline because I do not have a square jaw. It's a very rounded jaw. So I go right on my jawline. If you have a pronounced jaw already, you can go right under. But you don't want to just keep the contour to the upper half of your face. You do want to balance it and put some down here. But the way I'm doing it is literally right on my jawline. And it just makes it look more structured. So then I'm going to connect that up here. So see the difference between that and that? And then I'm going to do it on the other side. Connect it up here. And I'm going to go straight under my chin right here. And then you always want to remember to buff it down under here because you don't want just like a straight line of dark. You want to blend. Okay, and then another step that I do is I take a kind of like a fluffy eyeshadow brush and I go right here under my lip. I promise it's not going to make you look like you have a soul patch, or it's not going to make you look like you have dirt under there. It's going to look like your lip is big enough to make a shadow. And then I also make, that's a little hard. All right. I make like little notches for where I would like my chin to stand out a little more. And sometimes I connect it like this. So just like a little circle to make it look like I have more of a structured face. So like it's kind of doing the same thing that I did over here. I'm just making the little notches to make it look like I have more of a chin. All right, so that is the basics of contouring and highlighting. I'm going to show you the bronzing gradient that I do in between. Then I'm going to stop this video, put on the rest of my face, and show you what it looks like with all makeup on. Like I said, I'm just going to be doing these mini tutorials just because the other one took way too long. So this is just my bronzer, putting in my powder brush, and I'm going more like you would for blush, not on the apples of your cheeks though, because that's where my blush goes, and then I, blend it back. But I am putting it like between the contour and highlight, and it just makes it blend a little bit more. All right, so that is my basic contour and highlight routine. I'm going to put on the rest of my makeup and then I'll be back. Okay guys, so this is my finished makeup look. Yeah, I went hard today, but go hard or go home. So you can see how putting on the rest of your makeup really pulls it all together. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if there are any other like mini tutorials you want me to do, like show you how I do my winged eyeliner, show you how I do my eyebrows, anything like that. And today is my 1-year surgiversary. However, I don't know if I'm going to be doing my, 1 year, I keep saying 1 year, my 2-year surgiversary. I don't know if I'm going to be putting up my 2-year video yet, just because, well, one thing, I didn't weigh myself this morning, so I don't really have like a statistical report for you guys for, where I've come from the beginning and where I've come from last year. I can tell you that I've gained weight from last year. And you know, my mindset is just completely different. I mean, I don't know, my mindset, I don't know if that's the right way. Anyway, as you can see, I'm still processing it, so I just don't know if today is the right day to put up my 2-year video, just because I don't have that information. I am still kind of like processing it. We'll see. We'll see what I decide on later. But like I said, if there are any other videos, like makeup videos that you want to request, let me know. And yeah, until next time.